Do not listen to this recording while driving or while operating heavy machinery. Only listen to this audio when you can safely relax and bring yourself to a comfortable position. Thank you. Merci. The following is a story written and narrated by me, Kat A. Dharma. I hope you like it. Title is The Lemon Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you for listening. The Lemon Pledge of Allegiance. One of the first and most prominent lessons I learned from my beautiful mother was the art of true cleaning. And truth be told, it's one of my most beloved memories still, with my mom. My parents were first-generation immigrants from Yerevan, Armenia, and just like many other families of that time and place, we had a vintage round oak wood dining room table. I was an eager cleaning apprentice by a very young age, and I would walk around and memorize my mom's words and actions, and as soon as I was confident, I applied for the position as my mother's cleaning assistant. She was very pleased that I had taken the initiative to ask her, with all sincerity, to help her clean in a very official manner. She graciously assigned me dusting, wiping, and brooming. I eagerly complied, and I created a space under the kitchen sink where I stored my few supplies. I had my own little apron and everything, but my absolute favorite item to this day, that I was awarded for accepting my position as my mother's assistant, was my very own bottle of Lemon Pledge, which if I close my eyes now, I can still detect the scent of dusty lemons, because I loved it so dearly then. And as we all know, we need to have then to have and appreciate the now. But I digress. Every Saturday morning, Mom and I had a standing appointment at 7 a.m. to clean the one-bedroom apartment in Hollywood, which may not have looked fancy or extraordinary from the outside, but inside, our little apartment was spectacular inside. Filled to the brim with excruciating beauty, spices and photos of Ararat and Hayastan in Armenia, various items, symbols, old world beauty that literally mirrored my mom's soul. From her marriage dowry to the more modern pieces that she had purchased with whatever she and Dad could afford. Shiny pieces like Mikasa and Russian dolls inside of our family servant. And our weekly cleaning sessions were nothing short of the meaning of existence. Each weekend, I had my mom all to myself, just to me, to tell her what I had learned in school, to teach her the pretty English words that I've memorized, to prove to her that I could feel her heart with me at all times. Our mother and daughter cleaning day was filled with the quiet talking between sound of vacuum, inside jokes, silly banter, over the cascades of warm, bubbly water, while my mom washed dishes and smiled at me, calling me pet names, and I sat and looked at her from just a safe distance, sitting at the round kitchen oakwood table. I remember the day I started my new job with Mom. She greeted me in the kitchen with a sweet smile at 7 a.m. sharp, and I was very excited. I could barely contain it in my little 9-year-old body. It was like my body was buzzing. I was ready to work and help my mom, finally. That morning, before we began cleaning, I asked my mom to sit, and I proceeded to show her what I had learned in school that week. She sat and listened to me recite the Star-Spangled Banner with pride, and every so often she would stop and cheer me on in Armenian. And on that first day of my job, that perfect Saturday morning, I took the lemon pledge that my mom had purchased just for me, tied on my little orange apron, and I got to clean the round, vintage, oakwood dining room table that I could easily trace in my mind forever with my eyes closed now. I had imagined myself actually cleaning the table. I had done it so many times in my mind, for so long, and now here I was standing next to Mom and helping, contributing to our little struggling family, and watching her eyes sparkle like the table I was cleaning. I imagine parents must be so thrilled when their children take any kind of forward action that gives them a true sense of validation and pride, even if it's something as small as cleaning together. I thoroughly wiped the table several times until my mom said to me in Armenian, "Shat lavar chicas, atorneri masarpi," which translates to, "Good job, my young daughter. Now clean the chairs just like that," she said with a twinkle in her voice. I wiped the dining room table one more time for good measure and began on the first of the 6 matching dining room chairs. And from that day forward, I took my part-time weekend job seriously, treated it with value and respect, for I had assigned it to be valuable when I imagined it inside my head for the first time, way before bringing it to life to experience it. I had rehearsed it in my mind for some time, and I had imagined myself asking my mom if I could be her cleaning assistant, and her enthusiasm and love meeting me with reciprocity and understanding without knowing, even at a young age, that we get back what we put in. As above, so below, as above. I imagine myself as I do now, back then, yet somehow it's all the same. I see myself begin to clean with joy, the scent of lemon pledge gently wafting in and out of my nostrils, commingling with the immediate air in its path. How my mom's eyes glowed as she taught me with patience how important it was to pull each elegant chair out before I began cleaning, each one carefully from the very bottom of each of the 4 legs, and then the arms, and then the back, and the highest point to the crown. Every part considered, and every feeling acknowledged. How I would leave the space open for my mom to vacuum, and like a ballet, as soon as she was done, I would swoop in like we were dancing with our movements, without even talking at times, and gently push each chair back forward into its spot at the round oakwood kitchen table. The round kitchen table of life that sometimes spun and landed on happiness, and other days, unfortunately, not so much. Inevitably, as Alicia grew taller, the pretty kitchen table grew smaller. Week by week, month by month, year by year, my mom and I continued our cleaning ritual, and it's now, at this present current moment of my life, now a good 15 years have gone by since I moved out, and I can honestly say I've never longed cleaning that kitchen table and feeling fully enveloped with the aura of my mom's talking, my brothers laughing, my dad complaining, and my mom's words of wisdom that still softly buzz like white noise in my ear canals. The nostalgic sounds of life that we all play are individual versions of, on that forever loop in the most sacred part of mind, body, and soul. After my lovely, complicated father passed away, I was dropping my mom off back at her house in the valley. I had picked her up in the morning to go to the cemetery and visit Dad, seeing as it was his 1-year anniversary. On the drive back to drop her off from the cemetery, she invited me in for lunch, and she could see I was really tired. I suppose parents usually can. And as we walked into the house, I remembered how my dad used to lay on the couch. Always the same, one arm under his head, one leg under the other, and how I would sit next to him on the recliner, sometimes for hours on lazy weekends, and how he'd fall asleep on the couch, and we would all be extra quiet because we knew he was tired and he was sleeping. And although now it's been a year since my dad died, something hurt different from very deep inside me that day. I couldn't even remember how I got out of the car after the drive back to Mom's, but somehow I had. And I was now sitting at the round kitchen table, and I was so glad I was at my parents' house with my mom on such an emotionally difficult day. The kitchen cordless phone rang. It was my brother calling for something. I couldn't quite make it out, but I heard him say he was bringing something. My mom excused herself, and for the first time since I was maybe in middle school, maybe studying late, I found myself sitting alone at the kitchen table that I had cleaned every weekend for all of my young life. I stared at the table intensely, without flinching, and my field of awareness carefully paused at every perfect imperfection. And then I felt as though I was looking through the table, and I paused at my feet. My feet that used to be so small, that grew up, running around right by that table. And right under my feet, the gorgeous Armenian rug I had grown up on, crawled on, and eventually vacuumed every Saturday with my adorable mom. I felt overwhelmed by the bittersweet feeling of a home that was once thriving, and how that same house now was so quiet that I could hear my own heartbeat. The same quiet as when Dad used to sleep on the couch. The kind of quiet where I could hear the wall clock tick and talk. The round kitchen table of my youth, now so alone with the emptiness of my childhood home. I touched the curved edge of the sturdy oak and stared at my hands. Couldn't help but to remember how small my hands used to be. How I used to sit next to my dad at dinner time so he could cut my food. The countless times I made coffee for my mom and my aunts and served it to them while they sat at that table. The puzzles and made-up games I used to play with my brothers and cousins when we were little, they were all played at that table. The realization of all the beautiful things that are now forever past took hold of me. And as my eyes began to pull back so I could see more of the table, I sat up straight, put my hands in my lap, and began to breathe calmly. Counting down from 10, I knew I had some time before my mom would return. I could still hear her voice faintly, talking on the phone with my older brother. And so I allowed myself to relax fully, and I let the memories swarm into every fiber of my being. All of the emotions that were absorbed by the round table of life all slowly began to form all around me, as if I were in a waking dream, yet not, because I didn't have complete control. It felt like every emotion had come to life in its actual raw nature, the feeling inside of feeling, the matter inside of matter. Every experience I had seemed to collide in the invisible air all around me, all at once simultaneously. And as it began to seep into my pores, I allowed it. I sat calmly and quietly, knowing I was safe at my mom's family home. I let myself feel the love, the tears, the jokes, the arguments, the stories. And as I began to close my eyes, I started to feel the goosebumps. I drew in a deep, calm breath, inhaling through my nostrils and letting go of all the anxiety and fear as I exhaled calmly. I felt the tears begin to well up in my tear ducts, and I told myself, I know it's going to hurt to remember all the memories attached to the round kitchen oakwood table, but calming myself before it happened made all the difference in the world. I felt my dad touch my cheek, and I heard my mom calling faintly. I kept my eyes gently closed, and I understood now. I placed my hands under my head and laid my head on my hands carefully and tried to prepare myself for a beautifully lucid dream. That's why Papa just pinched my cheek. That's why Mama was just calling me, I thought. I must be running around the backyard, and Papa's making barbecue, and I must have strolled past him, and of course he pinched my little cheek. And Mama must have been calling me inside to set the kitchen table. It all makes sense, I thought. And just like that, I felt my subconscious let go, and I felt my higher self begin to materialize in my third eye. I felt as though my mind and body were vibrationally aligned, floating on a cloud of positive warmth, hope, and light. And I knew fully that I was out of my control now. And for a brief moment, nothing existed except my dad sitting at the head of the table, my brothers on either side, and my mom at the other end. And I began to feel my body buzz into and out of the source of the energy of the matter. And just like that, I felt as though my dad's parental love actually touched my cheek, and my heart immediately felt a sense of full relaxation. And just as my cheek began to tingle, I heard my mom calling my name from a distance, when just like that, I heard Mom's voice again, but it was much closer this time. And as my heartbeat became slightly more rapid, I suddenly, but not with alarm, carefully opened my eyes to my mom's hand on my cheek and her saying my name to wake me. I lifted my head and sat up as my mom walked into the kitchen. I sat up, started blinking, and for some reason, I was on the living room couch, and I was confused to say the least. I walked over to my mom, who was starting to prepare lunch for us. She was washing vegetables to make tabbouleh by the sink. I hugged her from behind and I told her I was sorry for falling asleep on the couch like that. And she said, "It's okay, honey," in Armenian. As I was telling her why I went to lay on the couch, because of the flood of overwhelming emotions, her hand motions kind of came to a stop, and she turned her waist into me, kind of chuckled and said, "Are you okay? Go sit down, honey." And so I sat down and thought, whew, I'm glad I got that out of my system. I can just be with her now, not make her more sad or upset for any reason. So I said, "Mom, when you stepped away to go talk to Arsen, my older brother, I couldn't help but remember how much I love this table." And it was at this point my mom stopped chopping the parsley and said, "Honey, this is the first time you've sat down at the kitchen table, sweetheart." And I just looked at her confused, and she went on, "The moment we got back from the cemetery, you said you wanted to lay down on Dad's favorite couch. You've been asleep for an hour, sweetheart." And I was speechless. She came over to me, leaned in to kiss me on the cheek, that was still vibrating and said, "When you get a chance, can you clean the table?" I got up very slowly from the kitchen table, the beautiful kitchen table that I love so much, went over to the sink and kissed my mom on the cheek back. I opened the cabinet under the sink, and there it was. I grabbed my lemon pledge from 15 years ago, and with what I can only describe as gratitude to the universe for bringing me my mom, I began to clean now because of then with my mom yet again. As I finished cleaning the table with the same 9-year-old pride and passion and enthusiasm from whence I started, I contemplated on whether or not I should tell my mom about the interesting yet bizarre out-of-body experience I just had. Being that my mom is very, very traditional, extremely, and has no personal experience with deep meditation or active imagination, I didn't want to scare her for any reason. And so I bit my lip before slightly opening my mouth, just barely ajar to say something, and the phone rang. It was my brother calling from the road to let Mom know he would be there soon. I put the phone on the charge base, and I decided that I would be serving only myself if I veered this whole day into a conversation about me, and that's not what my mom needed. So I cleaned the table and started setting the plates